Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Bricks King podcast, where I'm going to bend your ear about Lego, review those amazing bricks and plastic, and discuss what is new and up and coming around the Lego world. I'm your minifigure ghost, Matt. Let's build on it. Welcome in, everybody. How are we doing today? Episode 257, and today we're talking about the new and improved, amazing, the spaceship Galaxy Explorer originally from Classic Space, but isn't from Classic Space anymore. It's the 90 years of play. It's the anniversary set. It's all the greatness, awesome, wonderful, everything, right? So we're going to talk about that today and all the little tidbits of knowledge and information that you can glean from instruction books these days. We'll talk a little bit about those. But overall, we're going to talk about the model and what it is, what it can do, what it's worth. I don't know. What's it worth it to you? I don't know. Anyway, let's get the details out of the way first. This thing has a set number of 10497. It has 1,254 pieces. It retails for €100 or 100 USD here in the United States. Or if you're on the pound system, pound, hashtag, no, it's retails for 90, which is just a little bit cheaper. It always is. Always. So that is the detail part that you need to know. Well, also in Mike Siaki, who is the designer, and Mike has done so many cool things recently. It's just add him to the list of one of the designers. It's like, oh my God, I love your stuff. It's incredible. All right, so let's talk about the model itself and what it has, and because there's a whole lot to this thing, just a whole lot of stuff. One of the things I found interesting is that they actually use all of the original colors from the original back way when. The only difference is the medium stone gray is the new gray that they're using. Obviously, they don't have the old gray from way back when. Materials are improved, all that kind of good stuff. I'm sure it has some craziness to do with it, but holy moly. So this, I never had the original, so I'd have nothing to compare to. I can't say, oh, it was better than the original, or the original is so much better because this or that. All I know is what I have in front of me, and I have an awesome thing. By the way, if you are somebody that likes to swoosh things, this is swooshable, very much so. I flew this thing around the room here after I was done with it, and my wife looked at me like, what is wrong with you? I'm like, sorry, I'm playing with my spaceship. Spaceship! Right? It was just a lot of fun to mess about with and stuff like that. So the overall design was a lot of fun to put together. There's just a few things in here to get some of these angles, like the very front point of the aircraft is really interesting in the way that they do it. Well, even on the sides, we're talking about hinge plates and hinge bricks and stuff like that, because you got to be able to accomplish these angles. But one of the other things that I found really, really fascinating is underneath some of the tiling on the sides, there's 2x4 tiles all along the sides. They use a variety of kind of like clip with bricks and stuff like that. It's not even so much their clips, but they use bricks that have a hole in one side, and they use that special modified tile that has that tiny, not tile, 1x1 round plate that has a bar, that tiny bar sticking out of it, just to kind of hold everything together. Because before I noticed it in the instructions, I was like, how in the hell are you going to get this stuff on the side to stay in a position? Like, how are you going to manage that? And I honestly had no idea. I really had no idea what they were going to do. And as you go along in the build, you're like, whoa, that is a really cool idea. I like the way that is done. So overall, what you have here, we'll talk about some more of the aesthetic and stuff. You got your big spaceship. You have a compartment here that has room for four explorers, 2 red, 2 white. They are the identical character. The only difference is the helmet. It has like the chin strap area is thicker, obviously, because they don't want things to break. It's different. They all come with their air tanks and stuff, but they can all fit in this cabin or in the cockpit. It's fantastic. I love it. Such a cool way of having things. Now you've got a bunch of printed printed decals. No, a bunch of prints that are in here. You have one that shows the ship, and then you have another that the co-pilot is sitting at that is showing the ship in space, and then the pilot has one in front of him. These are all 2x2 tiles, by the way, but he's got one that's got a bunch of buttons on it and stuff like that. And then you have the 1x2 that we have seen so many times. It's got red buttons and yellow buttons on it, a big yellow button in the middle and stuff like that. Now, just behind them, there are also some slopes that are printed here, angled bricks that are printed here, which is nice. They just have what looks to be like grill striping on it, the black vertical striping. And then just in front of the cockpit, we have the logo, the Classic Space logo, all prints, by the way. And then the LL928, which they wanted to bring back the iconic set number in its own right, so why not? And then you have it on the other side as well. Those are on bricks. They are 1x6 bricks, so you have their mirror image of each other. Now, there are some more printed tiles and stuff we'll talk about here, but we'll do that when we get to the back part. Comes with that yellowish translucent colored glass. I love that, the plastic. Both of mine did have, one of them had like a smudge scratch on it, which was kind of odd. And then the other one had a few minor scratches on it. It's unfortunate. It's just the way of the world. It's the way this kind of stuff works. You're never going to come across something, at least I haven't, maybe once in a blue moon, where you don't have a scratch on any of these trans pieces of plastic, the glass and stuff like that. So moving just behind that, by the way that they managed to get this angle in here, to get the sloping upward, because it is tucked into the chassis. It is, you would think, oh, they just used angled bricks. No, they didn't use angled bricks to be able to get this. They're square, rectangular bricks. It's just angled into the chassis. It is so beautifully done. It's just sank in there, and you just kind of attach everything else around it. And before you know it, you're like, you don't even know how it was done. You kind of go through the process, and you're like, okay, that's neat and all, but no, it is unbelievably neat, because it's almost kind of just, for the longest time, it just kind of really just bobs there. Not really bobbing, but it really just kind of sits there. Now, when you get into different Technic stages and stuff like that, you pin it in and everything is dead and solid. It's not a big deal then. It was never a big deal to begin with. But anyway, so we're moving just behind that first canopy that we have here, and there are two red translucent pairings there that are here. They're 2x2 round bricks that are in the trans red here, and just, your side signal lights or something like that on the side of the cockpit. It's really nice, the fuselage there. And then we open the other end of this, the rear cockpit, or the whatever you want to call it, the cargo bay or whatever. Same piece, open that, and down in here we have a few different tiles as well. Two of them are the same tile that I talked about that is sitting in front of the pilot himself or herself on the left side. And then there's a few others here that we have. We've got some radar that we're showing some things. We've got some other gauges and stuff like that, just stuff. And then you have one here. And I didn't know this until someone else pointed it out to me. It is a tile just like the rest of them, 2x2 here. And it has a scene here, a printing of a Bionicle scene. And I had no idea, because I wasn't a Bonkel person. Just wasn't. So I thought that was kind of neat. It's a nice homage to Bionicle fans who aren't the happiest. I think they're still waiting. Like, we need this. We need that. We need. Anyway. So you do have that in there. And then there's some spots in here where you could probably stick air tanks. They're just like empty spots in here. They're just very shallow receptacles that you could put something in it. I did stick the robot that you build with this. That little fella did not come with the original design, but you'll see in the instructions why it was put in there. And it's just a cute little robot holding some cups. Brick-built robot, by the way. And then just on the outside of that, we have a few different spots that can open up. One has an air tank. One has some lights in it. As you're on the planet surface, wherever you're landing, you can see where you're going if it's dark. Is it dark? I don't know. I have this weird, like, I expect other planets to be dark like we are, I don't know. It's weird. Because you see movies and you're like, oh, the surface of Mars, it's never dark. It's always lit. Well, I don't think the truth. I don't think that's realistic, but I don't know. I'm not an astrophysicist, or I'm not going to look any further into it. So just leave me alone, okay? Anyway, but just behind that, we're moving to the rear now. You've got all this lovely blue that they use here. And you've got, I don't know if you guys recall the original pieces that were used. They don't make these anymore. But what they did here is they used the buckets. They used the light bluish gray buckets. And that is attached to, a brick and stuff like that. Nothing wild and crazy. My point is, the piece that it's supposed to resemble was it a full brick tall? I think it was a full brick tall. And it had like 3 megaphones that were kind of sticking out, one on each side and then one out the front. And then it was only a plate, a 1x1 plate as a part of this entire assembly. And it just not clipped on, but it attached. Now, they don't have those anymore, unfortunately, because that is a cool piece. I have some still original from my childhood and stuff like that. So that would have been neat, but I get it. I think this was probably a little bit better to use as far as size and scale, but alas, they're just making do with what they have. So as we move further back here, and we'll get to the side engines here in a moment, you've got your big spoiler here in the back for your tail on the rear end. And then you have on each side, you have the arrows. And I didn't realize this, but in the original, the arrows were, I believe it said it was a sticker. They didn't do that. It's a really interesting way in which they did it, because you have some depth here. And you have this, you build the wall on each side, and then you have this mini assembly that you build and tuck down in there. And it uses one of the white Nexonite shields. Anyway, the way that they accomplish that by getting the arrow is the arrow is recessed in there. It's a white arrow, obviously, with the blue all on the side, but it's a white arrow. And the way they get that is, they use some modified slope pieces here, and then you have some studs on the side that is going on. It was so cool because I didn't like when I built the assembly and I'm looking at the instructions and I was like, okay, what printed piece? And then I turn it to the side. I was like, holy crap, that is cool. That is cool. I love that kind of stuff. I'd rather have that. I know it's more pieces than having a sticker or a print. I would rather have that. I don't need an arrow print pointing me down or pointing me up, left, right, center. I don't need that. So there are one on each side, by the way. This thing does open in the back. It is clipped into place. But before we open it, there are 2 little engines that are on the rear. Really nice brick-built engines. The ones in the front that are adjacent to the second canopy, the cargo bay area, those are longer engines, thicker builds, really cool in the way that they're attached and how they have so much kind of air, the openness around it. I really like the way that those are done. But you have like the little fin that is in the front where I guess it's supposed to be spinning up or whatever. So let's get to the inside here. I'm going to pop this thing open, and this is where I think this is the last thing that you build, if I'm not mistaken. But this is where you build your little 4-wheel on planet vehicle, right? And there's not much to it. It's just got a little headlight and not much else. Some red rims on the black tires. It's really, really cool in the way that it is done. But what it allows you to do is you get an inside look in what you have going on here. There's actually a brick-built door that can open and close. Think of it like an airlock door, right? Because you don't want to get sucked out into the vacuum of space. Absolutely not. That would be horrific, especially if you didn't have a helmet on. I mean, you're talking about the air being sucked out of your lungs immediately. Such a painful death. Anyway, so that slides back and forth across on a track. And then one of the coolest things ever. You would think, oh, I just open it up and I pick this thing up and I move it. No. Lego designers were like, no, there is no picking up of anything. This thing is going to roll out the back of the aircraft. Okay, sure, guys. Well, for the longest time, giant tiled plate. Okay. One of the giant plates that is smooth on top. I want to say they're 12 long, something like that. Just huge. And it was just sitting in there for the longest time during the build, because it's in there for some time before you get to this part. It's like, what is going on with this? Why is that in there? That looks very unfinished, knowing full well it has a purpose. But the entire time, I in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, okay, what are you doing here? What are you doing, guys? Well, the fascinating thing is there is a mechanism. I don't really want to call it a mechanism, but there are some pieces here that are pinned into place. Actually, I think they're pinned in with axles, but they're pinned into place and they hold this plate assembly onto the rear. And it only attaches via 2 studs. That's it. Just 2 little tiny studs on the underside of part of the inside of this back area where you have your all-terrain vehicle. And what you do is you drop that down and you pull out the black tiled plate, and it drops. You pull it the whole way out and it drops. And what does that do? That releases your vehicle. Now, to keep your vehicle from falling out until it's time, because you're thinking, oh, well, this is just sitting there ahead of time. Like if I close it back up, I open it, it could roll right out. They use 1x2 tiled slopes here. The little, Anyway, they use those to help. But what is also here is you have 2 Technic pins that are here, which in this white assembly, it's nothing crazy or anything. And that holds your wheels into place so that your vehicle, you could tilt it upright and it's not going to fall out. But the minute that you drop that rear and then pull out the tiled plate here, and that thing rolls right out. And it just rolled right out in my hand. Put the plate back, put the assembly back into place, load that bugger back up. Or, if you're on a lunar surface, or I want to say lunar, I know it's not just a moon, but whatever planet surface you're on, you could always, play with it that way, however. The other thing that is in here, other things that are in here, you have a little walkie-talkie radio and you have a wrench, because that is always important for everything. And then these doors close up and clip back into place. Now, one of the other things that I found very interesting, and we'll get to the underside and the feet and stuff like that here in a moment. When I was going through this, navigational lights. I'm very familiar with flight and stuff like that. And, the navigational lights, you have your red and you have your green. They're to denote the sides of an aircraft. So usually red lights are on your left, green lights are on your right, or starboard and port, depending if you're going to use those terms or not. Anyway. Well, in this case, I was building it, and I was like, okay, all right, I get it. Well, then there's 2 in the front that are red and 2 in the rear that are green, and I was like, no, that's wrong. But instead of doing it in the not traditional, but in the way that it makes sense, they just followed the tradition of it, and I like that. It wasn't anything where I was like, what in the heck are you doing? Why would you even do this? No, it makes absolute sense. And I'm behind it 100%. I thought it was a really cool idea. And it just, keep with the original. I mean, you did it with the colors aside from the one. You did it with a lot of the, I don't want to say pieces, but a lot of the stuff. You just kind of kept to the original. So now the last few things here that I just wanted to mention. And as I was going through the instructions, I was looking for one of the little things, and I can't find it. I don't remember where it was, but where I said they use the bucket pieces, I guess those are just supposed to be thrusters. They're not like a siren. I don't know if I called it a siren or not. I can't remember. Obviously, it's not, but it's still the same. Like the original piece was still the same. It's maybe if I said the purpose was different, I apologize. But the feet actually extend and retract, and they retract into these simple little slots, and if you want to pull it back out, you pull it back out, and it's real nice and easy. It's real smooth in the way that it is done. Has some underneath thrusters as well. I do like that the 2 rear where your feet come out, the 2 rear landing feet, the up inside internals, there is a red 1x2 plate in there, a trans red plate in there, so that you can pretend like, hey, it's landing, and we got the lights so we can kind of see. I don't know that it really matters, but that's a thing. So let's talk about what it is as a whole. I think it's a fantastic piece. I think it's a great thing to add to any collection. I really, really, really enjoyed this build. And again, I was okay that it wasn't some $400 set. Not every set needs to be $400. Not every set needs to be $200. Not every set has to be $100. But I feel like there's good value in this. There's nostalgia in it. The colors look really great together. Some people are going to say, well, it's not my cup of tea or whatever. I'll pass on it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You don't need to pick up every single thing. I don't pick up every single thing. But there are some things where I'm like, yeah, I need you. I need you, buddy. And as my Lego building increases to different themes, I'm like, I kind of need that now. I kind of need that. So I think it's worth $100. I mean, obviously, if you could get it for cheaper, awesome. This thing comes out August 1st, so you guys are only a matter of 3-4 days away at the time of this recording. So by all means, make sure you're ready to go because this thing is going to sell like hotcakes. So I wanted to share a quick funny story with you. I don't want to say it was really funny. So a couple days ago, we had a person here that was this house that we're in right now was never a long-term solution. It was just a wait until our home is done. And we're going to be moving around the third week in August. Well, anyway, there was an investor that bought our house, and they had a representative here because they're out of state. They had a representative here during the inspection of the home. And it's only a 6-month-old home, so there's like nothing wrong with it. Not yet. Anyway, and we were just hanging out outside in the car, and after we got done, well, in the motorhome with the dogs and my son, and, you know, I'm waiting for these people to get done. You know, it's only supposed to take about an hour and a half because, again, it's a smaller house. And the real estate representative comes out, and he knocks on the door of the motorhome, and I'm like, oh, hey. He's like, hey, I'm so-and-so from such and such. I'm the person. Okay, cool. Hey. And, you know, he's just asking me some questions about the house, nothing crazy. And then he goes, hey, can I ask you a personal question? I said, sure, not knowing where this is going at all. And he goes, because I've got my whole setup here in my, what I'm going to term office. This isn't really an office at all. And he says, are you like a YouTuber or like, do you make videos or something? I was like, oh, I said, are you talking about? He's like, yeah. I said, no, I'm not a YouTuber. I said, I'm a podcaster. I said, ambassador with Lego, you know, the whole thing. Right. And most of that people, like, they have no idea what you're talking about. Those of you that are deep into Lego, that know the Lego Ambassador Network and that kind of stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Have been a part of it or know people that are a part of it. Part of a Lego user group, whatever. And he's like, oh, podcast about what? And, you know, I said, Lego. And he was like, wow, that is awesome. He's like, my brother, this guy was probably around my age, probably around 40, maybe a little older than me. And he goes, my brother's huge into Legos. And immediately I heard the S, and I'm like, it's okay. I'm not going to correct him. It's fine. It's fine. This isn't hurting me. It's fine. It's fine. So, my brother's really big into Lego, and he would die to, you know, have some of that stuff in the air. And I said, or he said about the globe, I've got the globe sitting out because I was like, well, that's a perfect piece to have sitting out to take up space on an end table just so that it, you know, it looks more presentable. And he's like, that must have taken forever. I was like, yeah, it took some time. Anyway, he was like, oh my goodness, that's great. That's awesome. And I said, well, my wife wouldn't agree with you on how awesome it is. I said, because there's a lot in this house, and she's tripping over boxes and stuff in the garage. And this Lego, why? Ugh. Anyway, it was a funny story because, you know, people are big into Lego, and you don't come across people like myself that often unless, you know, it's like a YouTuber or somebody that's streaming on Twitch or, you know, just doing other kind of content. You usually don't come across it, like TikTok and Instagram. You usually don't come across it that often. And I thought it was really, really funny. And, you know, I said, hey, I appreciate it. And here's one of my business cards. He's like, oh, my goodness, I'm going to have to tell my brother. Hey, you never know where you're going to meet people, right? If it's something that somebody else can enjoy, come join the party. Get on the bandwagon, guy. Let's go. Anyway. So that's going to wrap up my thoughts on this episode, on this craft that I've got here in front of me. And I hope you guys are all doing well. I'm working on content, I promise. just a lot of chaos trying to not get rid of this house, but sell this house. But it's under contract. Everything is good. Now it's just waiting and waiting. So we're good now. We're good. So I've got the Technic stuff coming up next, and then the lovely Atari. Oh my God. I can't. It's incredible. But you have to wait on it. You just have to wait on it. So until we meet again, I'm your minifig host, Matt. Let's build on it.